And now we take you live to French Trump's weekly press conference.
As long as
Hello, it is French President Trump, and I am here to take questions for the press. This is the opening of the French President Trump press conference.
Mr. President.
Mr. President. Mr. President. Mr.
The tall man in the back. Yes.
Yes, hi, this is Emmett Manning from New York Newsday. Mr. President,
yes.
You seem to be favoring red states over blue states with support and supplies. Shouldn't this crisis be a non-partisan issue?
Non-Parisian issue? No, my friend. Everything is a Parisian issue with romantics like me. We carry Paris in our hearts all the time. The lights, the cafes, the soufflés, the baguettes. I just had some delicious camembert only a moment ago.
I said, shouldn't this be a non-partisan issue here in the States?
Oh, non-partisan. No, it should be partisan. I hate the fucking blue states. Next question.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Yes, you right there. You.
Hello, Mr. President. Thank you. This is Tony Romo with ABC News.
Yes, Tony Romo. It's good to talk to you again. Did you get my order? I ordered the dipping sticks and the thin crust pizza. I love to talk to Tony Romo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Why did you plant a tree on the South Lawn for Earth Day when you have rolled back environmental protections and ravaged the EPA since day one of your presidency? Isn't the tree just a phony gesture?
Phony gesture? Phony gesture? Do you see this gesture I am making at you now? Does it look funny to you, Mr. Tony Romo? Pence! Vice President Pence, stop staring at my ass. I've told you before, if you have to make your goofy eyes, do it at my face. Write his name down. Write down Tony Romo. I'll tell you, Mr. Press Person, I planted that tree so that in 10 years I can look out the Oval Office window from my desk and see a beautiful tree. Next question.
Mr. President.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chartreuse Jones here from the Brooklyn Eagle. Mr. President,
so nice to talk to you, and you are looking fine, if I do say so myself, Chartreuse.
Thank you, Mr. President.
What's the name of the paper again? Tell me the name of the paper.
The Brooklyn Eagle.
Oh, it's very important. Very important. Yes, Brooklyn Eagle. Go ahead.
Yes. So, Mr. President, you continue to say that we have lots of testing, but the governors say that they don't have enough. What do you say about that?
That is not what the governors say. This is a trap. This is a media trap. I talked to the governors. They say they don't want to keep track of how many cases of the virus are in their state. They say, surprise me. They say, let's make it a surprise. In fact, let's hide the infected people all around their backyard, and the governors will find them like an Easter egg hunt. What's this behind the azalea? It's someone with the virus. I see you with the virus in the wheelbarrow. That's what the governors want. Chartreuse. Next question. Next question.
Mr. President.
Yes, you, right there.
Mr. President.
You, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President, for calling on me. Beef Johnson with
Certainly.
the Kansas City Star.
Yeah, Kansas City is very, very important. The state of Kansas is one of my favorites.
Thank you, sir. I agree. Why, sir, despite pleas from your COVID-19 medical team, do you not base your decisions on science?
I'll tell you something, Miss Kansas. I don't trust science. Why is it spelled that way? It should be science. 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 It sounds Chinese. I don't trust it. Next question.
Mr.
Mr.
President.
President.
Yes, you.
Hello, thank you, Mr. President.
Yes.
Tony Roma with ABC News again.
Tony Roma,
Governor,
I love you. Can I have?
Thank you, Mr.
Can
President.
I have extra Parmesan cheese? Thank you, Tony Roma.
Governor Kemp of Georgia is opening businesses like gyms, barbers, and hairstylists. He was acting in accordance with your desire to open the economy and get back to work. What would you say to him?
Well, I don't advise it for just any state, but the people of Georgia are getting flabby. And have you seen their hair? It gets very humid there. And Georgia's hair can get very frizzy. These Georgians have very big, puffy, frizzy hair. Governor Kemp should not have to look at that flabby Georgians with big hair. Next question.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Gentlemen in the back. Yes, you.
Yes, Emmett Manning again. People are very confused and unsure about what would be deemed an essential occupation. So I'm going to ask you can you tell me if they're essential or non-essential?
Certainly.
For instance, working at a grocery store.
It's very essential. We have to have that. The people, they have to eat. They get the chips. And people have cabin fever. Have you heard of cabin fever? People need to eat while they have their cabin fever. Very essential. Yes, next. What?
Great. What about the library?
Not so much. People reading and educating themselves. The schools are closed for a reason. This is not a time for reflection, and certainly not to dip into history. So no, I would say no l'histoire at this time. The libraries, in the books, the people touch the pages and it gets all... No, that could spread the virus. No.
And how about professional wrestling?
Oh, I cannot think of a more important, particularly because this takes place in Florida, and Floridians depend on this. The professional wrestling is so stimulating to the mind without leaving the house. It's very, very important. Also, who knows what life's going to be like when this is all over? People may need to learn the technique of jumping off a fence or a wall onto someone else. So it's very educational. Yes, I'm all for the professional wrestling.
And then what about mud wrestling?
Well, we have continued construction. And therefore, we have a lot of digging the foundations, and we have a lot of dirt. And so the best way to use the dirt is to turn it into mud for the mud wrestling. And again, it is such important training for anyone who might someday want to work in my administration. The mud wrestling. Next question.
Mr. President.
Yes, you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chartreuse Jones here again, the Brooklyn Eagle.
Of course you are, Chartreuse. You are very Chartreuse. I love talking to you. Yes, what?
Thank you, Mr. President. Sir, the facts about the gap between when you knew about the virus and when you acted are stubborn and damning and ignorant and selfish and horrible.
That is not true! That is not true! People are amazed at how early I acted. I always act early. Ask Melania. I act early. I get up at 6 a.m. and I look in the mirror and I say to be or not to be. I act early. People are amazed at how early I act. That is the clue. No more questions. No more. That tears it, Chartreuse. It's a form of punk. That's it. That's enough questions.
This has been a live broadcast of French Trump's weekly press conference.
Starburns Audio, a a podcast network.